All right, welcome everyone to another week's Mindfulness. I want to thank you for joining me and start, as always, by acknowledging that I'm recording on the traditional lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people watching this. So last week we had some really positive feedback on the structure of last week, so I'm going to go with that again. I've got another reading, we'll do some practice together, and as we're practicing I'll talk you through some of the practices and some of the intention behind them, just to help in your own practice. So if you find yourself a comfortable position, either close your eyes or find somewhere that you can look where you won't be distracted. And if you just find your breath and just notice what it feels like to breathe in and to breathe out. And just keep feeling that. Become aware of your senses. Become aware of what you can hear, what you can see if you've got your eyes open. And just of what's happening around you right now as you listen. And this is a reading again from the Tao Te Ching, Stephen Mitchell's version, illustrated. So I'll show you that illustration, which is pretty amazing, I think. Worth checking out this one. So this is the reading. A good traveller has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you'll get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret. So I want to focus on some parts of that I think are really relevant to us in our practice. And we'll explore those as we sit and practice together today. So the first line, a good traveller has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. So as we sit right now and breathe and feel and notice what we can hear right now, notice what we can feel, the air against the skin, clothes against the skin, maybe the sun, maybe the wind. We practice with no fixed plans. So we're just traveling into the present moment with our attention. So no fixed plans. And not intent upon arriving. And just stay with that, stay with those sense perceptions, stay with the breath right now, with no idea of destination and therefore no idea of arrival. Because when we practice, the voice in our heads, the storyteller, thinks that it needs a reason to practice, thinks that it needs an outcome to work towards, a destination to arrive at. And if we go down that path, then our practice becomes future focused. It becomes focused on, where am I trying to get to? How close am I now? How close was I yesterday? Am I getting closer? Am I moving fast enough? And when will I get there? And what happens when we indulge this, when we lose ourselves in this, is that attention disappears once again into thinking, into the thought stream. Our attention vanishes into words and pictures arising inside you. And so we lose that awareness of breath, body. We lose that present moment awareness. And to be completely immersed in the present moment, we need to let go of the process of thinking, of planning, of remembering. And so within our practice, we can't, if we're to really practice, we can't have any fixed plans. We can't be intent upon arriving. And the same in our lives. If we expand this out to our lives, most of us have a picture in our heads of the thing we need to arrive at, or the place we need to arrive at, or the set of circumstances we need to arrive at in order to be happy. Because the storyteller looks at that self-image, that picture of me that arises inside, sees what it perceives as being wrong with it, either the image of you yourself or the circumstances in which you live. And then it creates this list of what I need to be happy. And it's often not very specific, but it might just be, I'd be happy if, I'll be happy when I have more money. I'll be happy when people respect me. I'll be happy when I have a better job, a better car, a better house. And it can be material. It can be focused on relationships. Could be an external thing. I'll be happy when people take action on climate change. But if we look at the pattern that's been there throughout our whole life, you'll see that you won't be happy. Because the basic, we could use the word dysfunction, it's harsh, but the basic dysfunction is the seeking itself, is the belief that I'm not enough as I am, that taking attention into myself and experiencing what's here now is not enough. I need more. And with that basic dysfunction at play, we can completely replace the circumstances of our lives and nothing will change internally. Or it might get worse, potentially. If you look at people who have a lot of financial success, a lot of worldly success, who are rich and famous, they don't tend to be really happy. I'm sure some of them are. But the rich and famous bit doesn't make people happy. It might even make them miserable. But regardless of the effect of that, what's happening is, again, our attention is leaving a direct experience and moving into this abstract world of concepts and thoughts, words and pictures. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. And to me, we're all artists. Our life is an artwork. It's an act of creation. And when we step back out of thought, we do that. We let intuition, we let that, whether it's an inner voice or whether it's just what occurs to you in the moment, we allow that to guide us. And quite naturally, we find the right path for us. And this next line I really love. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. And what we are in our practice really is scientists, is where conducting experiments, where taking attention within, exploring the inner world, and noticing what is, noticing what's real and what's true, and noticing what we believe to be true, but that doesn't hold up under examination. And free of concepts doesn't mean no concepts arise. But free of concepts means we're anchored in the present moment. We can see concepts arising, concepts just being thoughts, arising and disappearing without being lost in them. The final part I wanted to reread and just explore a little is that the master is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. And I think this is really critical as well, because how often do we say, I'll be happy, or I'll start doing the practice, or I'll start working on myself, or working on whatever I need to work on, when this thing changes, when the circumstances change, when the situation is different. And what Lao Tzu is saying here, to me anyway, is that the master, which doesn't have to be a lofty term, It's just us when we're practicing at our best. Doesn't waste anything, makes use of every situation. So what arises around you and what arises within you, we make use of in the practice. So that's what I want to really explore today. So let's keep our attention inside and notice what is there to make use of in this moment. Can you feel the breath? Can you feel body? Can you feel the tension within the body? That tension is something that we often resist. But if we're making use of everything, not rejecting anything, then let's make use of that too. Notice the tension. Notice the stress that's accumulated. And listen to that. Pay attention to that and listen to that. Feel it. This is your body telling you how it experiences the time that you spend thinking, the time that you spend lost in thought. This is your body communicating with you about the impacts, about what this continual past future focus brings into your life, directly into your body. So let's feel it. Let's acknowledge it. Let's celebrate our growing awareness of what effect that has on us. Because so often we believe that we need thinking, that we need to plan, that we need to get lost in past and future. And if you look at it, if you really look at it through direct experience, you'll see that there's no, there are some benefits to planning and learning, of course. But in terms of compulsive thinking, of just getting lost and losing awareness in those thought processes, there's no net benefit for us. It doesn't add anything to our lives, and it creates this stress and discomfort. So as we sit, let's look inside at emotions as well and listen to them. The emotions are telling us what happens when we believe thoughts as well. The emotions are telling us what occurs when we get lost in the words and the pictures and prioritize those over our actual lives. This is what we're talking about here. We're talking about prioritizing some words and some images arising inside over our actual life experience. And believing that those thoughts are more important than what's happening now. Thoughts are more important than the person standing in front of you. They're more important than the meal that you're cooking, the garden that you're tending, the work that you're creating, the animal that you're caring for. Our belief is that thoughts are more important than all of those. And we know at our deepest core that this is false. And we can test that. We can know that it's not natural, that it's not our truth, because when we experience that, we feel stress. And when we get lost in that, it feels unnatural. And whatever is natural and right for you and for me automatically brings a feeling of well-being. And when you're thirsty and you drink water, you don't have to guess whether it's the right thing to do or not. When you're hungry and you eat food, when you're cold and you wrap yourself in a blanket, you know that it's right. And the same when you eat something that's you're allergic to or that's poisonous. You don't have to guess whether it's right for your body or wrong for your body. You know it because it creates disharmony and discomfort and sickness. And so when we look inside and we see the cost of our addiction to thinking, the cost of our attempts to find happiness in the future, to perfect the story self, the self-image that only exists as a thought. When we see our efforts to do that, then we can see the cost of that. We can feel the cost of that. Your body is telling you that it doesn't like it. And let's be careful here that we don't use this to abuse ourselves, to indulge in pity or self-hatred or any of that. Because it's not something we've been doing in a deliberate, considered way. It's a habit. It's an addiction. And so withdrawing from the addiction, the first step is to notice the impact that it has on your body, to notice the impact that it has on your life. And this is true of any addiction. To begin with, we justify it, we minimize it, we're unaware of its impacts. We see it as necessary. We can't live without it. So a question, knowing what you know already, with the skills that you have already, could you survive a day without thought? If no thought arose for a day, would you be able to survive? Now, most people, when I ask this, say, well, I wouldn't know how to do things. But if you watch when you're actually doing things that you need to do, when you're, let's say you get up and you're making your coffee in the morning, which is very, very important. I agree, that's very important. Or you're making your breakfast. If you watch the process, we don't actually think about it, as in the words that come when you're making breakfast or you're making coffee are not about the process itself. We don't sit there and think, I must turn the kettle on now. We don't sit there and the thought doesn't come, I must turn the stove on now, or I must get the milk out of the fridge. What's happening when we're making breakfast, when we're making our coffee, is that we're thinking about something else. We're thinking about the future. What time is it? When do I have to be at work? And none of that is adding information to you. It's just stressing about it generally. There might be some reminders in there, but most of it is just compulsive, stressful thinking. Because when you wake up in the morning and you walk out and you turn on the kettle, you already know what time you need to be at work. You already know what you need to do to get there. There might be, if you're starting a brand new job and you're traveling somewhere different or some different method, there might need to be some planning. For most of us, most of the time, we could do it automatically, and we do those things automatically because most of our thought is not related to what we're doing now. So when we talk about breaking this addiction, it's also useful to notice that along with being stressful, most thought is not even practical. In fact, it's distracting you from what you're doing. It's lowering the quality of what you're doing. And for anyone who's, and I'm sure you've all done this, who's got ready for work or school or whatever, and been really stressed out and full of thought or lost in thought at the time, you find yourself forgetting things. You find yourself walking back into the same room you've already been in 5 times to get one more thing. You find yourself chasing your tail. Because attention's not flowing into the actual process of getting ready. Attention's absorbed in thinking about something else. So we can notice, if we notice the effects of compulsive thinking, and we notice the fact that it's not necessary, it's not adding value to your day. Just noticing those things and being aware of them are 2 steps towards breaking this addiction, or this addiction falling away. There's 2 more things that I want to say about this. So the third thing that's really critical here is to notice that you are not producing the thoughts, you are not creating them. So if you watch, and you can watch this now, just breathe and watch thoughts coming and going, you'll notice that they just come out of nowhere. They're not, 99% of the time, they're not brought about through a deliberate process. And even if you sit down to do a deliberate process, like, right, now I'm going to plan my week, the thoughts that arise within that process come spontaneously. We don't create them. So we're not thinking, we're being thought. The person is being thought. It's happening to us, not being done by us. And so when we're stepping out of this addiction, it's useful to know that those thoughts, they don't really belong to us. And they're not original, they're the same thoughts that everyone else is thinking. If I told you everything that goes through my head on a daily basis, some of the characters or the situations will be different, but the themes, what the thoughts are about, will be all the same pretty well. So now we've got 3 elements to what we're exploring. It's the impact of thought, physical, emotional impact of thought, there's the fact that it doesn't add anything, and there's the fact that it doesn't belong to us. We're not actively doing it. So we're addicted to playing with the stimulation, but we're not creating it. And it's not adding to the quality of our lives. In fact, it's reducing it. Now, the final thing on this, and people who've overcome addictions will probably agree with this, is it's much easier to replace an addiction with a behavior that serves you better, that you enjoy more, than it is to just try and stop doing something. So we could try stop getting lost in thought, and that's going to be pretty difficult. But what I recommend instead is that we take the awareness and the attention that we're investing in thinking, and we invest it somewhere else. So one place we can invest it is in experiencing the present moment. Noticing the sunshine, feeling your body as you walk. So beautiful just to walk and feel the body, feel the air, to see. And like, I live in a city, small city. But when I sit outside and drink coffee in the morning, which, as I say, very important, the dew on the trees in the front yard, the frost on the grass at the moment, the mist that rises as that frost melts when the sun comes up. The sunset last night was this bright red that just looked like red paint splattered across the sky. And just out walking in amongst that, if we're not investing all our attention into thinking, we've got so much available to notice. And when all of you are here because you've done this, you've looked around and gone, wow, the world is beautiful, even in the middle of a busy, crowded city. and you've listened and you've thought, my God, there's so much happening that I don't notice because that voice is churning inside and I'm just listening to that. And the movement of the body, however your body is able to move, it doesn't have to be lithe and young and fit and free. Just the active movement. So much joy in that. So we can reinvest attention in the body and the surroundings. We can also start to look inside with that attention and start to examine our experience more deeply. What is happening within us? Who am I if I'm not the thinker, if I'm not the I that's referred to in that thinking process, the story self? Who am I? And we've talked in previous weeks about noticing awareness. We've talked about noticing the space out of which the thoughts come and go. And in a sense, it doesn't matter so much where you invest that attention. But if we do invest some attention into this inner curiosity, it further weakens the grip of the thinking process because it starts to break the identification that we have with thought. So I'd encourage you, as well as you're noticing what's happening around you, is to notice what's happening inside you. And notice the awareness that's watching what happens. Really connect with that. Because, learning and discovering who we are and discovering who we're not helps to break this addiction further. Because the root of this addiction is the I thought. It's the belief that the image in my head that I call me is who I am. That's at the core of it. So we can examine that and just ask, who is watching all this? Who's referred to when the thought comes that I want this, or I need that, or I feel this? Who is being referred to? And we don't want to answer that in words, but we want to take attention within and really look and really explore. So if we see this as an addiction, the addiction to thinking, the addiction to I, and we use these principles that we talked about today, noticing the effects, noticing what it adds or doesn't add to our daily life. Investing our attention in, something different, something else. And noticing that the thoughts aren't ours. We're not creating them. If we take those steps, even in small ways, day by day, you can start to loosen the grip of thinking, loosen the grip of these beliefs. And that's where freedom comes from. So I want to read this just one more time through, and then I'm going to stop recording, and I'm just going to take questions after I stop recording. I'll tell you why in a minute. So, a good traveller has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself from concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus, the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He's ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you for watching on Catch Up. I'm just going to pause the recording there, and I will be back next Wednesday, 11 o'clock Melbourne time. I'm going to stop the recording there, and then I'm going to take some questions from people who are here live.